with the Youth Service Bureau. The objective today will be to identify 2 harms caused by vaping underage. Now think to yourself a consequence you might receive if you were caught vaping. There might be different ones depending on who caught you. A few might be grounding, loss of trust with an adult, detention at your school, or a ticket in the community. Is there any others you can think of? Electronic cigarettes come in many sizes and shapes. Just know that whether you call it vaping or juuling, it all means the same thing. These devices have been around about 15 years, but really only on our radar for the past 5 when they got popular among youth. This is largely due to Juul. So in this picture on the far left, we have a first generation electronic cigarette. And on the far right of the screen, we have the newer generations like the Juul. See how different they look? Now, why is it important we talk about vaping with you? Because these products are dangerous and addicting, meaning once you start using, it's very hard to quit. And one of the primary reasons underage substance use is taken so seriously is because the brain isn't fully developed. In fact, it isn't fully developed until 25 years or older. The last part of our brain to develop is the prefrontal cortex, which is the front of our brain, and that's known as the CEO of the brain. It's in charge of decision-making, goal setting, and regulating emotions. That seems like a lot of things. It's also known as the brakes of the brain, the part of the brain that says, is this really a good idea? Think of a referee at a basketball game. You trust them to make good calls, so you wouldn't want a bad one, right? Your brain is also going through a pruning process during middle school and high school. This means that your brain is getting rid of habits and skills that we no longer need, and it's strengthening the ones we do use and need. So, if you start using drugs during this time, it causes those skills to be remembered and can lead to continued use of drugs. So what you choose to do right now is personalizing your brain for adulthood. One of the biggest predictors that we know is if you are going to develop an addiction, we look at the age of the first use. So 90% of smokers started before the age of 18. And that all has to do with how our brain is developing and this pruning process. Here is an inside look at what a vape pen or electronic cigarette looks like. This image might not look like the more popular devices like Juul or Puff bars, but they all work in a similar way. Electronic cigarettes are battery-operated devices that heat a liquid into an aerosol. So here would be where the battery is. There's an LED light, a sensor, and a heater, and that's what heats up the liquid nicotine and turns it into this aerosol. So this aerosol is what maybe you would see as a cloud of smoke coming from one of these devices. It also has a place to hold the liquid nicotine, or otherwise known as e-juice. Now here are about 60 different chemicals that have been found in the vape aerosol, so that cloud that I just mentioned. That's a lot of chemicals that were previously not known to us. And about 40 of them have been shown to cause breathing problems or other health problems. All of those right there in the orange are what we know to cause different health problems. See, it's not just water and nicotine. Unfortunately for us, these companies who are selling them don't have to label everything that goes in them. They often try to keep it a secret. Because if you know there was rat poisoning in it, you might not want to use it. So rat poisoning is arsenic. Acetone is nail polish remover. And formaldehyde is what they use to preserve dead bodies or body tissues. Nicotine is usually the drug that you will find in the products. About 99% of the time, even if it says 0% nicotine. And if you were to use Juul, Sorin, Fix, or Novo, it's 100% of the time you will find nicotine. Nicotine is a drug that gives you energy, and it's one of the most addicting drugs in the world. If you get too much nicotine in your body, it's called nic sick. This can cause you to vomit, become dizzy, have a rapid heartbeat, or even pass out. This means your body is overdosing on the nicotine. Your body is recognizing that nicotine is a poison and it needs to get it out of it fast. It's a very scary feeling that some of you or your classmates maybe have already experienced. I've heard a lot of kids even say that when they're experiencing this, they think that they're dying because of how new it is to them and how scary it feels. Now, how much nicotine is found in these products? Well, this chart compares the popular products with how much you'd find in a pack of cigarettes. So in a pack of cigarettes, there's about 20 milligrams of nicotine, and that's about 1 milligram of nicotine per cigarette. With a Juul pod, we have double that. With a Fix pod, we have 75 milligrams, and then with the Sorin, we have 90 milligrams of nicotine. Using any of these products could easily result in nic sick for someone who has never used it before. Also, using this much nicotine makes you become addicted faster. Some are reporting that they're becoming addicted to nicotine in just a week. In the last 2 years, we have begun to see more and more harmful side effects. Not only is it our body, but also our environment that I'll talk about in just a little bit. So it can damage our lungs, just like smoking would, making it easier for you to get sick and longer for you to heal. Currently, in the news with coronavirus, they've been talking about the dangers of vaping and the impact it can have on a young person's lungs, making the complications to COVID or coronavirus much more serious if you do vape or smoke. The chemicals also can hurt your heart. This may cause serious problems now or down the road. Another is these products can blow up. The middle image is of a guy who was using it and it blew up in his face. There have even been reported deaths from this. We also have seen EVALI, which is the medical term for those who were becoming mysteriously ill from vaping last summer. It started last August, and for about 5 months, no one could figure out what was happening and why people were dying from vaping. Finally, in December, they learned that there was a chemical being added to these products called vitamin E acetate, which is now banned. This chemical was going into your lungs and actually almost hardening like bacon grease in your lungs, making it very hard for someone to be able to breathe. Another huge health effect is addiction. So this is one that I've kind of been talking about a lot in this presentation, but it's very important to know how serious addiction is. So how many times today have you thought about vaping? It's probably zero if you don't vape, but if you do, it might be all you can think about. You usually can't even go 30 minutes without thinking about it, about where are you going to vape next? Where are you going to find the money to spend on buying a new vape? How are you going to sneak away from your parents to do this? Those are all signs that you might be addicted. Here are some other signs. It may have started as a fun thing you did with friends, but now it's something you have to do every day because your body craves it. I'm not here to shame you or blame you if you do vape or know somebody who vapes, but think to yourself, what am I getting from this? Am I still getting the same emotions or pleasures that I once was when I first started? Or is it just something that I have to do now? Something that I don't even like that I do? If you're starting to think, what am I getting from this? Why am I doing this? Maybe you do need help, or maybe you want help. So, there are a couple different opportunities. You can talk to a trusted adult in your life, and they can help you get help. Here, this right here is a quit line that you could text Juul or Vape. Text quit to quit your Juul or Vape. There's also a Minnesota line that you can call or text to also get free resources. Now, the last thing I want to mention about the harmful effects is what's happening to our environment. Do any of you guys know what the most littered product in the world is? If you guessed tobacco, you would be correct. 4.5 trillion cigarettes are littered each year. It's not uncommon to see cigarette butts or packages on the streets or beaches. These products are made of cellulose acetate, which takes about 12 years to break down. So that's almost your entire school career. And when they do break down, they become microplastics, which are still very bad for the environment. Now, the Juul pods or vape cartridges are another story. They're made of hard plastic, and it's unclear if they ever will break down. These devices have both plastic and metal. As you can see right here, this is plastic, and this little piece is metal. Studies have shown that pods usually have about 5 to 17% of nicotine still left in them when you throw them out. So if you're throwing them on the ground, this nicotine can actually leak into the ground. This is toxic for both animals and plants. And then the heavy metals from these products also leak into the ground and bodies of water. But side note, if you see these different Juul pods or any of the other pods, don't pick them up unless you are wearing gloves. Because like I said, you can get nicotine on your skin, and this is not good for your skin. So how can we prevent ourselves from using drugs? The next couple of slides are talking about prevention. This slide is about healthy ways we can deal with stress. Stress is often a reason young people and adults use drugs. So if we can learn ways to fight stress, we have a smaller chance of using. Right here is a very small list of ways to deal with stress, but they are some of my favorites. Changetochill.org is a great website to learn even more ways to deal with your stress. Also, it's always important to be able to talk to a trusted adult about any problems you're dealing with in your life. Another way to prevent is having strong refusal skills. So, this means being able to say no. So, here is an example of something that could happen to you. We're not really going to go over it, but just read it really quickly and think to yourself, what would I do if somebody asked me if I wanted to vape in the bathroom or vape at my parents' house or friend's house? Here are some other ways, if you didn't come up with a list, to be able to say no. And it's important to be able to practice your no and stick with it because oftentimes you will be asked more than once if you want to do something. And sometimes we just give in and say, oh, okay. But other times it's really important that we stick to what we want to say. So, being able to be honest, tell them you're just not interested in it. You could walk away. Oftentimes, I hear kids say, oh, just throw it in the toilet. But as we just learned, that's actually very dangerous for the environment. So, practice these refusal skills with your parents. Let them know, like, hey, I want to learn more about this and be able to say no. Another piece is being able to do your own research. Oftentimes, we know that young people might use drugs because they just didn't know the effect it would have on them, their friends, or their family. So, being able to do your own research is very important. Here are some trusted websites that you could go to if you wanted. These are all websites that I've gotten some of my information from as well. We are coming to an end, so if you do have any questions, please let your teacher know and they can get in touch with me and I can answer them. Thank you so much for your time.